Hey, what's good? It's Marshall Mathers the fourth here. I just want to talk to you guys today about the fact that I barely ever have any food that I can eat. And it does piss me off when I have a lot of people who come on my videos and go to the comment section telling me about how spoiled and how privileged I am and how my parents are always able to provide for me so easily, and they're always able to buy me foods that I can eat and that I'm not sensitive to. And that is just a flat out lie, because I barely ever do, believe it or not. And I have many food sensitivities. I mean, for Christ's sake, I got my food allergy test in 2015 when I was 18, which cost my dad $500, $600, and that was just the normal test. There was even a more expensive one that I assume would have probably cost around $1,000, maybe even more than that. And I could have saved my dad money if I would have just got my blood donated, and that would have been free. And so then I could have seen not only what blood type that I am, but also looked up online what foods can this certain blood type have, and what foods are highly beneficial for it, what foods are neutral, what foods is this certain specific blood type of mine supposed to avoid or should avoid. And when I got my food allergies tested, I can't even remember all the many foods that were even on the list. And the only ones that I do remember were wheat, dairy, egg whites, and hazelnuts. And there was a lot more. I mean, it was a long list of foods. And ever since 2015, since I was 18 years old, I have been not only trying to get used to strict food diet of foods that I can eat and that are either highly beneficial or neutral to my blood type. If I am an A blood type, I mean, my dad is an O and my mom's an A, so I can only be one or the other. I can't be like both. I can literally only be one or the other, either an A or an O blood type. And I don't know for sure what blood type I am, but I'm pretty sure that I am an A, because one of the things about A blood types is that when they get stressed out, they feel it like mostly in their head, or only in their head. And when an O blood type gets stressed out, or a person who has an O blood type gets stressed out, their stress goes all throughout their body, and they lash out and they want to punch something or someone, or kick something or someone, or in other words, break something when they get stressed out. And they like act out in a physical way when they get stressed out. And I've never really been one to do something like that. And I've noticed that whenever I do get stressed out about anything, I feel just extreme, severe stress in my head. And so, for that reason, I'm pretty sure I'm an A blood type. And we also have this book written by these two doctors, a father and a son, who actually did food tests for different blood types. And they pretty much have studied every single blood type, A's, O's, ABs, and B blood types. And what they do is, like, they take blood types from like different people, and they test like certain foods with this blood type, or whatever the blood types are, I mean, and see how the blood type reacts under like a microscope to whatever foods they're like testing with a certain blood type, to see if it's either highly beneficial, neutral, or food that whatever blood type that they are studying should try to avoid. And there's a lot of other foods that if I am an A, and if I do turn out to be an A blood type, there's a lot of foods that I'm supposed to avoid. Like, I'm supposed to avoid tomatoes, all of the kinds of potatoes, including sweet potatoes, and also I'm supposed to avoid coconut, and just a lot of other foods that I can't even think of at the moment, because there's just like literally for each blood type, there's a list of foods that are highly beneficial, a list of foods that are neutral, and then a list of foods that, depending on your blood type, you're supposed to avoid or you should try to avoid. And I've been really trying so very hard to stick with this blood type diet, or whatever. And it's hard, it's very difficult, and it's not easy, especially knowing that, like, I barely ever have any food. And it doesn't matter what you believe, because the truth of the matter of fact is, I barely ever have any food at all to eat in my parents' house. And a lot of times I fast. Some days I even go without eating at all, because there is no food at all whatsoever that I can actually eat in our house. And I have no money of my own, as much as I wish I did, to buy my own groceries and to provide for myself, at least in that way. And, you know, I hate myself, honest to God, every single day that I wake up after going to bed at night, and I can only ever feel another boring day, another dull day that will be exactly the same as the previous day. And, you know, I am frustrated in myself that I didn't move out of my parents' house at the age of 18 in 2015. And I'm also pissed that I didn't have my shit together. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have a vehicle. That if I would have had a job, say since the age of 15, 16, or 17, at the very oldest and latest, I would have bought my own vehicle. I would not have ever expected my parents to provide me with a vehicle. I would have bought my own. And I would have got my driver's license at, I don't know, 16 or 17 years old. And if I would have been able to, and if I had money, and if I had my shit together, I would have moved out of my parents' house at the age of 18 to take a huge load and burden off of the both of them, so that they wouldn't have to be so stressed out and depressed, having to provide for a grown-ass man-child, pretty much. And, I mean, I am a miserable wreck. I mean, literally. Just a miserable wreck. And I hate the fact that at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and now 23, that my parents have been still providing for me. Because I'm still so very dependent on the both of them, as if I am a child. And I'm not. And I feel guilty. I feel ashamed. I feel humiliated. And most of all, I feel embarrassed that I'm still as dependent on my parents as I was as a child. I mean, it's understandable for children to be dependent on their parents, because they can't fend for themselves. They can't provide for themselves. No way in hell. But a teenager who's more mature than a child and understands more and is able to do more in his or her life than compared to a child, can get a job and make their own money and have their own personal income to be able to buy whatever they want or need in life. And the fact that I didn't do that, like so many other millions or even billions of people all over the world, makes me feel like dog shit. And, you know, my dad is an O blood type, but even he eats a lot of things that he shouldn't. Like both A blood types and O blood types are not supposed to ever eat wheat, or in other words, gluten. And neither are they supposed to eat dairy. And yet many people still do, because many people don't care enough to not only donate blood, see what their blood type is, and look up online for free what foods are compatible with this blood type that I am, and what foods aren't. Instead of paying like hundreds or thousands of dollars to get a food allergy test to see what foods you're either allergic or sensitive to, because that's the only other option or alternative. And I mean, there's other stuff that both A's and O's aren't supposed to have, but that's just a couple of them. And you know what? Here in America, wheat and dairy honestly are the two most overrated foods to ever exist in the first place. I mean, it's just unbelievable how overrated wheat and dairy is. I mean, it's in pizza, it's in burritos, it's in donuts, bagels, it's in bread, it's in pizza rolls, it's just in so many things, cookies. I mean, it's just, and of course dairy's in like ice cream and sherbet and just a whole bunch of other fucking foods. And I think it's actually unfair how cheap both wheat and dairy are in this country, because of the fact wheat and dairy are subsidized by the government, which is why it's so damn cheap. I mean, literally, when you ever go to any store and you're going to buy anything that has wheat or dairy in it, it's so cheap compared to like its alternative, which would of course be something that's dairy free or gluten free or wheat free, which is so much more expensive. And a lot of things that also will have wheat and dairy in it will be genetically modified, processed, or engineered, whereas stuff that's gluten free or wheat free or dairy free is made with more natural and organic and non-GMO ingredients, which is also why it's more expensive. And, you know, if I were to buy my own groceries, I would literally be spending, even just on myself alone, $200 to $300 probably, even just on myself alone. And you know, my mom barely ever has any money, and I think it's pretty sad. I mean, I think it's honestly really sad that my mom, since she has been giving birth and having kids since 1993, and in total 8 kids with my dad, stopped working and stopped having a job since she started having kids, because she did have jobs when she was like a teenager and even in her like 20s, like her early to mid 20s, before she met my dad and got married to him in her late 20s, and him in his late 20s, almost early 30s. And I mean, it's just crazy that my mom hasn't had a job since she has been having kids. I think it's really sad and depressing, especially knowing that she has been so very dependent on my dad, her husband, to provide her with grocery money, even though they have as many kids as they do. You know how much money it costs to feed a family of 8? Including, of course, the parents. It costs about $200 every single fucking time. You go to the grocery store to buy food for a family of 8. It costs $200, if not more. And sometimes it does cost more. Because, I mean, let's face it, the price of food and groceries or whatever is just skyrocketing. And there's just so much bullshit inflation in this goddamn country of America that's really enraging me, that so many things in this world, whether they're food, clothing, shelter, materialistic things, the prices on them are just so inflated, which is like outrageous. It's unbelievable. And I get that companies have to make profits or whatever, but they don't need to make that much of a profit, regardless of what they make, whether it's food, clothing, shelter, vehicles, or materialistic things. Like, honestly. But of course, because companies are selfish and greedy, they do inflate the price on literally everything. You know, what's kind of funny in a sad way is the fact that back in the 50s, you could buy a house for $3,000. Back in the 50s, you could buy a house, brand new house, for $3,000. And it's also funny to know that back in the 50s, you could provide for yourself and a family and afford all the needs and wants of life on a minimum wage job in the 50s era. And then in the 60s generation and era, just one generation later, the prices of houses went up to $30,000. Just one generation later. Not even like a couple or a few or several, just one generation later, the price value of houses went up to $30,000. From $3,000 to $30,000. And of course, that included anything else. Not just shelter, meaning houses, but also food, clothing, vehicles, and other wants and needs other than food, clothing, and shelter, which are the main necessities of life that everyone all over the world needs. And yet, the price value on all those things that even human beings need, that are necessities of living, are so outrageously, unbelievably expensive. And just in the price value of them is just so inflated. It's just crazy. It literally is insane. And you know, here's the other thing. You know, when my mom and I ever do go to the store, and I don't even go to the store as often as like my mom or my dad or anybody else in my family. I rarely ever get to go to the store, because when I do, I get food mainly for myself, because I have so many food sensitivities, and I'm always trying to find foods at a store that are compatible with me. But there's obviously a lot, but they're expensive as fuck. And so a lot of them I don't even get, because I don't want to have to spend so much of my dad's money and feel guilty as a motherfucker. And but anyway, when my dad will give my mom, say, I don't know, $100 or something, and usually he gives her less because he wants to retire soon. Only understandable. He's old. He's almost in his 60s after all. And I mean, when he gives her $100 to go to the grocery store, we can barely get that much fucking food. I mean, honestly, which is just unfair. Especially when no matter what fucking store I go to, I see all these welfare food stamp bums that can suck the biggest cock of their life, because they'll have like grocery carts full to the fucking brim every single time I go to literally any store, and I see these people way more poor than my dad, but he's just terrible with money, no offense, and he had way too many fucking kids. I mean, he only makes like 80 to 95 an hour. He doesn't even make like 100 an hour. And having 8 kids, that's not enough. I mean, I honestly wish my dad would have been a psychiatrist, because a psychiatrist makes what, like 200 an hour, maybe even 400. That would have been such a much better income than 80 or 95 an hour. I mean, not that that's a small amount of money, but it's not enough for a family of 8. It's not. And, you know, I just think it's really unfair and unjust when, like I said before, whenever I go to the store and I see these people that are on welfare and are on food stamps, and they have grocery carts full to the brim, whereas we have grocery carts that are just not even halfway, not even half full. I mean, literally, it's just outrageous how expensive so many things in this world are. Like, houses are hundreds of thousands of dollars, as if everyone has a great paying job, or as if everyone is like a millionaire or a billionaire. And cars cost thousands of dollars, brand new, like, I don't know, 30,000, 20,000, 35,000, 40,000, 50,000, 60, like, it just goes on and on and on. And groceries, especially depending on how many kids you have, if you have 8, every single time you go to the store, you'll have to spend about $200 to feed a family of 8. Sometimes even more than that. Sometimes even more than $200. It's just crazy. And I honestly cannot wait until I can get a job myself, so I can finally, once and for all, take care of my needs and wants. And not be as dependent on my poor old parents ever again. I just cannot wait to get a job. I just wish things in this world weren't so expensive. And it's not just like, oh, necessities of living are so outrageously expensive, like houses, cars, or I mean vehicles in general, and food, but also wants are crazy expensive. Like gaming computers cost thousands of dollars, same with TVs. And sometimes even hundreds of dollars, which isn't that bad. But like when they cost thousands of dollars, that is ridiculous. And gaming computers do, whether they're gaming laptops or gaming desktops, cost thousands of dollars. $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 for a gaming desktop, for a gaming laptop. Yeah, like everyone is a millionaire and a billionaire in this world, obviously. That's why things are as expensive as they are. Makes sense. And it totally makes sense that even if not everyone is a millionaire and billionaire yet, it will happen someday and very soon that every single last person in this world will be a millionaire and a billionaire. Sure. Like, it's as if these people in power, these capitalists, actually believe and think that every single last person in the world is rich as fuck. Or at least here in America anyways. And it's just insane that they're so selfish and greedy and that there's still so much inflation going on. And remember what I said earlier in this video. Way back in the 50s, long ass fucking time ago, you could buy a house on a minimum wage job for $3,000. That is not much at all. And of course the wage was way less, but still, it wouldn't have taken that long to buy a brand new house. And you could probably have gotten even a pretty nice damn house for $3,000 back in the 50s. And I'm sure cars were cheap. Groceries were also cheap. I mean, literally, they were really cheap. I've seen like old photos of like grocery store food prices, like way back in the day, and I was just astonished, mind blown away by how cheap the grocery food was. Like, it wasn't even dollars, it was cents. Like, literally cents. A loaf of bread for like 10 cents. Bananas, 5 cents. I mean, literally, none of the food items costed even $1. They were cents. Super damn cheap. I mean, I wish there was never any inflation. This world would be so much better if there was never any inflation, never any greed, and never any of these capitalists or company owners that are so selfish. Things would be so much cheaper if there never was any inflation. And I wish more than anything there never would have been. But like I said, I mean, I am sensitive to a lot of foods. And the only foods that I remember on my food allergy test were wheat, dairy, egg whites, and hazelnuts. And the foods that I remember, if I am an A blood type, that I'm supposed to avoid, that I'm also sensitive to, are all the potatoes, including sweet potatoes, chicken, tomatoes, beef, duck, goose, ham, just a lot of different kinds of land meats. The only kind of like land meat that I can eat that's even neutral for my blood type is turkey. But honestly, I could live on turkey for the rest of my life and be fine. Like, I love ground turkey. It's my favorite kind of meat. And not just ground turkey, I love turkey lunch meat, I love turkey hot dogs, I love turkey bacon, and I mean, there's just a lot of foods that I can still eat, even considering my blood type, but they're expensive. They're very expensive, so I just cannot wait until I can get a job. But anyway, let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. I'm out.